Okay, I really hope you're going to love this. This is a fantastic rule. It is the 10-second rule, and it will free you up in the exam to write whatever you want. So in the exam, here is my problem. Do I write a description? Do I write a story? Now, I know that most stories will be rubbish because students don't read enough stories and therefore they can't plan a story. So I want my students to write a story because they're bound to get higher marks, because the examiner will be reading rubbish. Oh, a story that works. Boom, I want to give that top marks. Whereas every student can write really good descriptions. In theory, whether they can sustain it or not, we'll see. But you've got to write an amazing description to get the top marks. So how do you write a brilliant description that is also a story and therefore gets massive marks? Well, this is how you do it. You decide to focus on only 10 seconds of time. When you do that, you can craft a beginning at the opening second and an ending at the 10 seconds. So you can claim that's a story, it's a narrative, it goes from beginning to end. But equally, you can take that bit of writing as a description, if you want to have it as a descriptive piece in the exam, and say, look, examiner, this can't be a story because there's only 10 seconds of time, and therefore it's not enough to finish a story. Mark it as a description. So you can do that. Well, why is that important? Well, if we go back to my videos on the 6 camera angles that you can use to craft your description, that's based on the picture. But often the story can be connected to the picture. For example, if the story was write a story about a time when a character was challenged, well, it's easy to have characters challenged with this description where you can describe a crash. Or write a story in which characters are really happy. Well, it's easy to use this because they can be really happy in my on my aeroplane, and I can contrast that to the death that they're going to have when the plane crashes. So often you'll be able to use the picture to describe, but craft the description so it fits a story. Now, without reading the whole story, let me show you what that looks like. Here we start outside with a flock of geese. So the geese are outside flying towards the plane, and they're going to hit the engine in seconds. In my next paragraph, Lisa's in there and she's noticing the birds coming towards the engine. So this is still in the same few seconds before the birds hit. Then I go to my next paragraph where at the same time as Lisa's noticing stuff, the stewardess is also noticing. It takes us slightly forward in time because she feels this turbulence as the geese hit the engine. So we've moved probably 5 seconds or so. Then there's a trick of putting time in slow motion, so we know that doesn't take up much time. You go into the character's thoughts, so that gives you a bit more of a backstory, so you can cover more events. But these events happen at the same time because they're a backstory in the character's mind. Good trick, eh? So you can have more time in your story by going into your character's head and getting them to remember the past. Then we go to Bart and this couple sitting next to him, and that's all happening at the same time while the birds are coming towards the engine. And then we've got an ending where the birds have definitely hit the engine, the pilots are now worried, and then we go back to Lisa and the final action that we're going to have. So all that has taken a maximum of 10 seconds. We see the geese coming, they hit the engine, and this is the moment just after when people are realizing what has happened. 10 seconds. But you can see how that's also a story all the way through. It's a narrative. So you could easily enter that into the narrative question. Once again, you get higher marks if you write a good story than if you write a good description, because the type of skill is exactly the same, but the students who are writing stories will get it wrong. They won't be able to plan an ending. Okay, it's worth going back to the ending now. So how does my description plan an ending? After all, this is where most of us really struggle when we write a story. Well, what's quite interesting here, actually, I'm possibly showing you the wrong screen. I'll give you this one. When I did this in class with my students, I didn't include that step. Okay, so I gave them a 5-point plan, and I thought I was going to end at number 5. So one way of getting an ending is when you're placing the cameras around your scene, is if you have one final one that zooms out, and that will just suddenly ask you to leave the scene, won't it? When you leave the scene, you'd sort of craft an ending. But I realized as I was writing that having a motif going through, which was the guitar and the music, if I keep coming back to that and come back to that image at the end, it makes the writing feel complete. It says to the reader, look, this is what it was at the beginning, and now I've given it to you again in a slightly different way at the end, and that feels like an ending, and it feels as though it's been crafted. So just by coming back to my motif, I know I'm going to have a brilliant end. If I can't think of the motif at the end, if I can't find a way to come back to it, I can still get a really good end by zooming out in my final perspective. So I've got 2 ways in this method of forcing myself to have a really good ending. Once I have that confidence, I know I'm going to get a good ending, well, I know I can always do the narrative question, and I can always get higher marks. Don't just trust to luck, practice it before you go into the exam, and just think about this for a minute. Your writing is 50% of your marks, and it only takes 45 minutes to practice the writing question. That is the most efficient revision you will do for any single subject. 45 minutes to revise for 50% of all your marks. That is amazing, isn't it? Okay, I've cheated a bit. It's also a separate writing question for 50% of your marks on the second paper. But 45 minutes each, that's nothing, and you could practice that. Obviously, I want you to practice more, don't I? Because I want you to go through and edit the stuff that was rubbish. Anyway, I'm waffling now, and this has got to stay under 10 minutes. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more, and goodbye.